Hey everyone, welcome to the Rebuild Talks with Tiffany. I'm really hesitant about speaking about this particular subject matter. And as a result, I've been avoiding it. But I know that so many people ask me about this. I get lots of questions. People hit me up on text in my DMs about coaching them through this, having a talk with them about this. I think people know how I feel about this particular topic if they have a personal relationship with me. And so the thing that I want to talk about today is dating. Yeah. So this is the thing. I have been avoiding this because right now I'm kind of in my solitary alone phase. I really love my own company. Let me tell y'all, I had this dog named Leo. Leo was the funniest dog ever. So, a little backstory on Leo, and you might have heard this story before, but if you did, here it is again. So, when I was teaching golf in Queens many, many years ago, not that many, but several years ago, I used to work at a location in a particular area of Queens. And as the years went by, I got switched to different locations and I wasn't at that location anymore. But this particular location, it was by Baisley Park in, I guess that would be southeast Queens. I love this location. It was kinda like the location where I, like, really learned a lot about teaching the sport of golf, teaching the basics, teaching the techniques of golf. In any event, my director at the time asked if I could go to that location because one of the instructors wasn't gonna be there for a couple of days. They were having something done or whatever. They just weren't going to be there. So I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. I love that location. I'm always happy to return there. So I go back to the location and who do I end up working with? I end up working with this young kid and his name is Freddie. And Freddie was like the sweetest, sweetest kid. Freddie had like this gorgeous platinum blonde hair with these beautiful big blue eyes, and his golf swing was just like it was perfection. It was perfection. I had actually taught Freddie when he was a lot younger. So let's say at this point he's about 18 or 19. I probably taught him when he was about maybe 10, 9, 10, around that age. Anyway, I see Freddie. We're having a big reunion. Oh my gosh, Freddie, I'm so happy to see you. How have you been? He's telling me he had just started college, where he was going, what he was studying. We're having the greatest time. So it was just the 2 of us. He kinda knows my style from, from working with me. I did a lot of training for the instructors at where I worked at the time. So people pretty much knew my teaching technique and my teaching style. We got along amazingly. So while we were there, while we were setting up to teach for the day, we noticed a dog. And if you know anything about this particular park, Baisley Park in Queens, it has a large grassy knoll, and around it, it has this track. And so, or a path. Around the path, it's, an area that people walk, they let their dog off in the grassy area, the dog plays and runs around while whoever the owner of the dog is typically walking around the path. So they typically always have eyes on him. Anyway, time goes by. We see this dog. The dog comes over, so cute, so sweet, so gentle. He kind of, he's nosing around, we play with him a little bit. And we're thinking that whoever owns the dog is eventually going to show up. We teach a class. After a while, Freddie's like, you know what? Let's tie this dog up because we haven't seen anyone. It's been a while. We knew that the kids were around and we didn't necessarily want the dog like just running after the kids to cause any type of commotion or if kids were afraid or anything. So Freddie says, let's tie the dog up. We tie the dog up to the fence, and the dog is perfectly happy. Sits down, he's looking around, he's fine. All these kids come over. He's fine with that too, but he was great when he was just by himself and we were doing our thing. He was good when the kids came over and wanted to pet him and ooh and ah around about him. Anyway, an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by, 4 hours go by. Still, we haven't seen anyone. But now it's time for us to go home. And we start to kind of pack up, and I'm like, what are we going to do? We haven't seen an owner come back. What should we do? So Freddie and I kind of walk around. We're looking, we're calling. We're like, has anybody lost a dog? Is anybody looking for a dog? No answer. I went up to they have like a little park office where they have like a bulletin board. It's not necessarily a manned space. Like there's not necessarily someone working there, well, every day, all day. But if someone comes, I take it that this is the space that they use. We looked in there to see if there were any notices for a lost dog, if there was anyone in there who might have some information. Nothing. So as I was walking around, I saw a sign on a pole that said, "Dog lost, call this number." But the picture was blurred out. What happened was maybe 2 days prior, I think it was like 2 days prior, there had been a really bad rainstorm, and so as a result, that's probably what blurred out the picture because it looked like it had gotten wet. The paper had gotten wet. Anyway, I called the number and, I said, "Hey, I'm at Baisley Park. My name is Tiffany. I teach golf here. We found a dog. I'm wondering if this is your dog." So they say, "Yeah, yeah, probably, because that's close to the area that we are, and we couldn't find him, so maybe that's him." So I said, "Well, how old is your dog?" So they said, "Oh, he's about 3." So looked at this dog. I said, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess he could be about 3 years old." He looked, young. He didn't look like an old dog, an aged dog. So I said, "Well, that looks like that could be this dog." I said, "What color is he?" So they said, "He's blonde and white." I said, "Oh my gosh, yes, this dog is blonde and white. He's so cute, so sweet. This could be your dog." I said, "Well, what breed is he?" They said, "He's a pit bull." I said, "Oh no, this is not your dog. Never mind." Because this dog was a small, like a cross between like maybe a Maltese and a Shih Tzu, not a very large dog, definitely not a pit bull. So anyway, I tell Freddie, we're talking about it. I'm like, what should we do? And let me give you a little bit of backstory on Freddie, okay? So I had taught him previously when he was a young kid. Freddie is so sweet. He's gentle. He's an animal lover. He's just a really, really lovely person. It's funny because that day when he saw me, he's like, "Oh my gosh, Coach Tiffany, I'm so happy to see you." So I'm like, "Yeah, Freddie, I'm so happy to see you." And I'm hugging him. I'm so happy. I'm like, "Let me see your golf swing." And we're chopping it up. And he says, "You look really great." And I'm like, "Well, thank you." He's like, "You just look amazing." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like what woman doesn't love to hear that?" I'm like, "Thank you so much. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you for saying that." He's like, "You just lost so much weight." And I'm like, "Well, I really don't think I did because, the last time you saw me was several years ago. And if anything, I've probably gained weight. I've aged. I'm a mom." So he's like, "Yeah, no, like you were kind of big when you were working with us." I said, Freddie, I wasn't fat. I was pregnant. Okay, I was pregnant. This kid thought I was just out here fat. I was like, "Dude, I was like 7, 8 months pregnant when I was teaching him at this time." But he's just sweet. This is just to tell you the kind of guy that he is. Anyway, he takes the dog, he puts him in the back of my car. He's like, "Maybe you can go around." He had to run to another part of our golf project, our golf work. He's like, "Well, maybe you can check the vet nearby, et cetera, et cetera." So I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna drive around." Drive to a vet, check. They don't have the dog doesn't have a chip. Nobody there has said that they lost a dog. No one's called them and said that their dog was missing or anything like that. I went to PetSmart. Dog is calm. This dog is calm in the car. He's calm. He's fine. He's not barking. He's not making a fuss. He just sits there. He looks at me. Anyway, take him into PetSmart. No, no, but we haven't heard of him. No one's called and said they lost a dog. Okay, fine. No, we don't see a chip. Okay, fine. Take him to Petco, same thing. I said, "Well, how old do you think this dog is?" So they said, well, he looks like he could be around maybe 3 or 4 years old, but the person said, but you could tell that he's been outside based on the way his nails are, the way his hair is, like the bangs were long, and the dog had fleas." Great. Okay, no problem. So Finally, after driving around for a while, I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna bring you home." And so I take him home with me, and I put him in the garage. He wasn't coming in the house, so put him in the garage, and he is just as happy as can be. I will say this: every time I close the garage door and he didn't see me, this dog started barking. Let him out, he was fine. Later on, so event. P.S. The dog eventually became our dog. He was adopted. I don't know whose dog this was, well, whoever the owner is, thank you. Leo was incredible. We had Leo for years, but this was the thing with Leo. When it was time for Leo to go outside, Leo was at that door. If we were used to letting him out at 5 a.m., Leo was at that door at 4:58, waiting patiently to be let out. And when we opened that door, that dog took off running. He was so excited to be outside. He was just friendly. He would go up to people. He wasn't a barker. He didn't bark in that way, but he just was so excited to go outside. He was friendly. Played with other dogs. He was nice to them. We had outdoor cats at that time, meaning that there were cats that would come around because where I lived in Queens, there was a crazy cat lady who would come around and feed the cats in the night. So we had an abundance of cats in our neighborhood. Anyway, we had 2 particular cats that would always come by our house, and he would go outside and play with the cats and very gentle with them, and when it was time for him to come inside, he would come inside and he was fine. The point that I'm making is Leo was just as happy to be outside as he was to be inside. He was just for a little dog, he just seemed very, very just reminds me of myself because that's the same energy I am. Call me outside and we're gonna do something. I'm ready to go. I got the plan. Let's do this. Let's go see something. Let's go be somewhere. Let's go to a show. And then call me inside and say, all right, Tiffany, it's time to come inside. I'm perfectly happy to come inside and be alone. And I'm as excited about both parts of my life. And that works well, except when it's time to date. Listen, y'all, you gotta go outside to date. You have to go outside to meet people to date. Like, you just have to. And it's not just to meet the person that you're going to date, it is to get that energy going. So I'll say this, as far as dating and meeting people, often what happens after someone's been hurt in relationship, especially if there's been a betrayal, especially if they've been lied to, we typically have a challenging time trusting ourselves again, right? Because you went by your gut, you made a decision, and it didn't turn out well. Your relationship ended for whatever reason, or it's hanging on by a thread, and you know that you should be wrapping it up, but you're reluctant to do that. My point is, if you're dating, if you want to date, you have to start kind of using some muscles that you may not have exercised before. One of the muscles is to trust yourself. Trusting yourself after not being in a relationship can be difficult. Trusting yourself after a betrayal or a loss or a divorce or the end of a relationship can be a challenge. But the thing is, no one says, no little baby starts walking and falls down and says, okay, that's it, I'm not going to walk again. It doesn't happen. They get back up and they try again. And they fall down again and they get back up and they try again. And essentially, if we want to have successful relationships, that is what we have to do, especially after a divorce. I see so many times, and it's really sad. It really saddens me. I see so many times in my family, with friends and family that I know, friends that I know, I see it with their family. People will get married, get a divorce, and then that's it. They don't want to go back into another relationship. Yeah, it was one relationship. It didn't work. Try again. Like, try again. Like, you don't just give up completely, although that it seems like that's what some people have done. It seems as if there are a large amount of people, and I might be talking to you, I might be talking to you. It seems like you don't trust yourself. And so you've just given up on dating altogether, which doesn't make sense because no one says, my gosh, I toasted this bread and the toast came out too dark. or too hard or too crispy, so I'm just not gonna toast anymore. Like, nobody says that. Nobody says, "Oh my gosh, I fell coming down the stairs, so I'm not gonna walk downstairs anymore." People don't say that. And if you find yourself saying that, that's a trauma response. Like, choosing not to date because you've been hurt or because you've been betrayed, it is an unnecessary response to a trauma that you've experienced that hasn't been addressed, that hasn't been healed. So the first thing that we need to do if we're going to start dating, if we're going to get out and have a relationship, is we have to start trusting ourselves. So I always wonder about this concept about trust. So trust is a muscle that we get to work on. It's not something that comes easily, but it is something that we get to work on. I like to say that trust is a confident relationship with the unknown. It is a relationship with the unknown, and we get to have that. So I'm typically a trusting person. I'm typically willing to try things again, try things, fail, try it again. That's a part of what trust is. I'm learning to trust myself. If we want to trust other people, we don't learn to trust other people, and people don't gain our trust by us removing things from them. We gain trust by taking on more responsibility and proving that we can be trusted with something, right? So you got to trust. You just got to trust. Start with trusting yourself. What can you trust yourself to do? Who can you trust yourself to be? And I feel like that's a big part of it. Sometimes we don't want to get into a relationship because we don't want to trust that we can walk away. We don't want to trust that we can say no. We don't want to trust ourselves to say, this, I've had enough. And so as a result, we choose not. We choose not to date. We choose not to enter into a relationship. The truth of the matter is, though, we're not created to exist outside of relationship. We are created to exist within relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friend relationship, a family relationship. We are created to exist in a relationship. So often what we'll do is we will avoid dating. We will avoid situations where we could be interested in someone because we just don't trust ourselves. All right, we're going to start working on trust. The other thing that we need to do is you got to get out. You got to get out. You got to start engaging with people. And I don't mean going to work. I think that women often fail to notice when someone is interested in them because they're making a choice not to notice. They're making the choice not to engage and make eye contact and connect with someone because they don't want to even open the door of someone being interested in them. And I get it. I get it. Like, we've experienced some awful things at the hands of people who cared about us, men who say they liked us, who said they loved us. I totally understand. However, the only way to get that muscle, that engaging, that connection muscle going again is to actually start using it. Listen, the UPS people don't even FedEx people don't even come to your door anymore. So you're not gonna meet somebody at the house. The mail person is not coming to your door. You have to get out. You got to get outside to meet people. And this could be an easy way to start. Okay, an easy way to start is just have a conversation with the person at the deli counter, or just look the person in the eyes who is checking you out. And I'm not just talking about someone who you're interested in romantically or someone of the opposite sex. I'm talking about just engage with people in general because that helps to build the muscle so that engaging with people becomes something that's more common, something that's more expected of us, something that we're more used to, something that we feel comfortable and familiar with. We have to start engaging with people. So listen, if you're starting to date after not dated for a long time, hit me up in the comments, DM me, text message me. I want to hear all about it. I want to hear about some successful dating stories. I have a great, fun dating life. I date some really cool and interesting people. But I think my daughters, in her last year of high school. So life is changing. Life is changing for me. Life is changing for me rapidly. And yeah, we're it's time to be in a serious committed relationship with someone who deserves to be with someone like me and someone who I deserve to be with. So if you are changing your life, if you're rebuilding your life, if you're starting to date after not dating for a while, I want to hear all about it. So hit me up. Let me know. Let me know how it's going. Let me know if you're going to try something new, if you're going to declutter, if you're going to start trusting yourself more, if you're going to get out and do something fun. Just let me know. I can't wait to hear all about it. I'm going to have some guests on soon, and we'll be talking about love. We'll be talking about relationships. We'll be talking about rebuilding a love life after being divorced, after being widowed. So, we're going to have some interesting people on. So, I really can't wait for you all to check out those episodes. As usual, you can find us on YouTube. The Rebuild Talks with Tiffany. Share this podcast, share this episode with someone who you think needs to date, someone who you think needs to be open, someone who needs to take a risk and do something courageous, do something brave, do something daring, and maybe start dating. Share this episode with someone who needs to learn how to trust themselves again. And I think that's it. All right, everyone. It was so great. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you soon.